We don't have time for you!
A father dedicated his entire life to raising 7 children. He worked himself to exhaustion, shared every last loaf of bread, and loved without limits. But after his wife's death, one by one, they all abandoned him. 6 of his biological children simply disappeared, until they decided to put him in a nursing home and forget he existed. But there was a 7th child, the only one he didn't father, but chose to love. And it was precisely this adopted son, the simplest of them all, who returned to find him when no one else cared. What happened next will make you rethink everything about family, gratitude, and the true meaning of love. Prepare your heart, because this story will move you to the very end. So subscribe to the channel, leave a like, and comment on where you're watching from. And let's get to the story. Samuel woke up every day at 4:30 in the morning, not because I liked it, but because I had to. It had been like that since he married Martha, more than 40 years ago, in a small town in rural Pennsylvania called Greenfield. Their house was simple, made of light wood with a sloping roof, and had a porch where Martha liked to have coffee while watching the sunrise. Samuel never had that luxury. While she had her coffee, he was already in the yard, preparing his tools, and because he worked as a carpenter and bricklayer, he took any job that came his way. He was a man of average height, with broad shoulders from carrying heavy loads, calloused hands, and brown eyes that always seemed tired, yet kind. He had that quiet demeanor of someone who didn't need to say much to convey everything. His smile was rare, but when it appeared, it lit up his entire face. Samuel wasn't one to complain, he never was. Even when money was tight, even when he had to choose between paying the electricity bill or buying food, he simply found a way. Somehow, he always found a way. Martha was different from him. She was sweet, talkative, full of life. She laughed loudly, sang while cooking, and had that gift of making any place feel like home. The two complemented each other in a way that only those who truly love understand. And together, they raised 6 children. David Breyer, the eldest, always serious and focused on his studies. Jennifer, the second, who dreamed of being a doctor since childhood. Michael, the family athlete. Rebecca, the artist, always drawing on any scrap of paper. Thomas, the funny one, who made everyone laugh. And Emily, the youngest, Martha's darling. But there was one more. Lucas. Lucas came into their lives unexpectedly. Samuel found him on a rainy October afternoon, about 25 years ago. The boy was about 8 years old at the time, sitting under an old awning in the city center, soaked and shivering with cold. Samuel had just finished work and was heading straight home, but something about that boy caught his attention. Perhaps it was his eyes, large and frightened, or the way he hugged his knees, trying to protect himself from the rain and the world. Samuel stopped the car, got out, and crouched down in front of the boy. "Hey kid, are you okay? Where are your parents?" The boy didn't answer immediately. He just looked at Samuel with those eyes full of fear and distrust. "I have no parents," she said finally, her voice almost a whisper. Samuel felt a tightness in his chest. He didn't think twice. He took off his own coat, put it on the boy's shoulders, and said, "Come with me. We'll give you a warm place and a meal, then we'll figure out what to do." She took the boy home. Martha was surprised at first, but when she saw the boy's condition, thin, dirty, clearly abandoned, her maternal instincts took over. She prepared a warm bath, gave him clean clothes, and made a plate full of food. Lucas ate as if he hadn't eaten in days. He probably hadn't eaten in days. Days turned into weeks. Samuel tried to find the boy's family, but no one showed up. No one looked for him. It was as if Lucas didn't exist for anyone in the world, except for Samuel and Martha. And then, without much fanfare, without official paperwork full of bureaucracy, Lucas became part of that family. Samuel never officially adopted him. He didn't have money for a lawyer, and honestly, he didn't think he needed a piece of paper to say that he was his son. Lucas was his son because Samuel chose him to be. Simple as that. The other 6 children accepted Lucas well from the start. Kids are like that, you know. They don't carry prejudices if their parents don't teach them. Lucas became just another brother, another one to play with, another one to share a room with. But as they grew older, something changed, especially in David, the oldest. He started making comments, nothing too direct, but always making it clear that Lucas was different, that he wasn't really part of the family. Jennifer, who had always been more neutral, never defended Lucas when David said those things. The others followed suit, except for Thomas, who sometimes defended his adopted brother. Samuel understood. Of course he understood, but he believed that with time, it would pass. That love would conquer any difference. After all, he had enough love for all of them, without distinction. Lucas grew up differently from his siblings. While his brothers excelled in school, he struggled. He wasn't stupid, far from it. But it seemed like the academic world wasn't for him. Samuel never pressured him. He never compared them. He simply encouraged each son to find his own path. Lucas found his in manual labor, just like his father. He started helping Samuel with chores from a young age, and the two formed a special bond. They spent hours together, repairing roofs, building furniture, talking about life. "Dad, why are people so different from each other?" Lucas asked once, while sanding a piece of wood. Samuel stopped what he was doing and looked at his son. "Because God made us unique, Lucas. Each one has a different purpose. Some are born to study, others to build, others to care. What matters is not what you do, but the heart you put into what you do." Lucas kept those words forever. Years passed. David graduated in business administration and got a job in New York. Jennifer became a doctor, as she had always dreamed, and moved to Boston. Michael won a soccer scholarship and went to play at a university in Texas. Rebecca became a graphic designer and lived in Los Angeles. Thomas opened a small technology company in Chicago. Emily, the youngest, married a lawyer and moved to Florida. Everyone left. Everyone built their lives far from Greenfield, far from Samuel and Martha. Lucas stayed. He never wanted to leave. He found work in the city, continued helping his father, and was content with the simple life he had. He dated a girl named Sarah, a primary school teacher, and the two married in a small, beautiful ceremony at the local church. Samuel cried tears of pride that day. Martha did too. The other children came to the wedding, of course, but their presence was different. Formal, polite, but distant. They took photos, posted them on social media, and left the next day. Lucas noticed, but said nothing. Samuel noticed too. And it hurt. Then came the hardest blow. Martha began experiencing chest pains. At first, she said it was just tiredness, but Samuel insisted she see a doctor. The diagnosis came like a bolt of lightning: advanced lung cancer. She had never smoked a cigarette in her life, but the doctor explained that sometimes the disease simply appears for no apparent reason. Samuel panicked. For the first time in his life, he didn't know what to do. He didn't have the money for expensive treatments. Their health insurance was basic, covering very little, but he didn't give up. He sold his car. He took out loans. He worked double shifts to pay the medical bills. Lucas helped with everything he could. Sarah too. But it wasn't enough. Martha fought for a year. Samuel stayed by her side every second. He held her hand, talked to her, prayed with her, and cried when she wasn't looking. The other children came occasionally, but always in a hurry, always with excuses about work and commitments. Lucas, however, was there every day. He and Samuel took turns caring for Martha, so that she would never be alone. One morning in March, Martha woke up feeling particularly weak. She called Samuel, who was sleeping in a chair next to the bed. "Sam," she whispered, her voice weak but still full of tenderness. He woke up immediately and took her hand. "I'm here, love. I'm here." Martha smiled. That tired but still radiant smile. "You were the best husband anyone could have had. And the best father." To all of them, "Don't talk like that, Martha. You're going to get better. We'll still see our grandchildren grow up together." She squeezed his hand with what little strength she had left. "Samuel, take care of Lucas. Promise me you'll take care of him." "I'll take care of them all, Martha. You know I will." "No, Sam." She took a deep breath, as if each word cost everything. "The others, they'll be fine. They have their lives. But Lucas, he's different. He has a heart that the world doesn't value. Promise you'll take care of him." Samuel swallowed his tears and promised. Hours later, Martha was gone, quiet, at peace, with Samuel's hand in hers and Lucas praying in the corner of the room. The funeral was difficult. All the children came. They cried. They hugged Samuel. They said they were very sorry, but the next day, they all left again, back to their busy lives, their important careers, their distant worlds. Samuel was left alone in that house that suddenly seemed too big and too empty, except for Lucas. He and Sarah came every day. They brought food, cleaned the house, and looked after Samuel so he wouldn't be alone. Samuel tried to decline, saying he was fine, but Lucas insisted. "Dad, we're here. There's no need to pretend everything's okay." Samuel looked at his son and wondered how he was so lucky. Not by blood, but by heart. Lucas was more his son than any of the others. Months passed. Samuel tried to move on, but the weight of loneliness was too much. The house held too many memories. He began to have difficulty doing things on his own. Cooking, cleaning, even getting out of bed sometimes seemed like a huge effort. Lucas noticed and suggested that Samuel come live with him and Sarah, but Samuel refused. He didn't want to be a burden to anyone. He had already done that his whole life, taking care of others. He didn't know how to let someone take care of him. That's when the other children started calling, not to visit, but to resolve their father's situation. David was the first. "Dad, we're worried about you living alone. You're already 73 years old. It's not safe." "I'm fine, David. Lucas comes by here all the time." "Yes, but Dad, you need proper care. Professionals. We've been researching and there's a really good place nearby. It's called Golden Years. It's a nursing home. A residential community for seniors. They have nurses, activities, other people your age. You wouldn't be alone." Samuel felt the world spin. An asylum. "It's the best option, Dad. We can't take you to live with us. Everyone has their own life, their own commitments, and it would be better for you to be in a place where you receive constant attention." The others agreed. Jennifer called later, saying the same thing. Michael, too. Rebecca texted. Thomas, who had always been the closest, hesitated, but in the end supported the decision. Emily was the most direct. "Dad, don't take it personally. We love you, but we can't put our lives on hold, and you deserve a place where you'll be well cared for." Samuel tried to argue. He said he was fine, that Lucas was taking care of him, that he didn't need an asylum. But the pressure was too much. 6 children saying the same thing. 6 children he raised, fed, and loved immeasurably, now saying they didn't have time for him. Lucas was the only one who objected. "Dad, don't go. Come live with me and Sarah. We have space. We want you there. Lucas, son, I don't want to be a burden." "Wait, Dad, you've spent your whole life taking care of me. You picked me up off the streets, gave me a family, taught me everything I know. Now it's my turn. Please, don't go to that place." But Samuel, tired and broken inside, eventually gave in to the others. Maybe they were right. Maybe he was too much of a burden for Lucas. Maybe it would be better for him to be in a place with people his own age, with nurses, with proper facilities. Lucas cried when Samuel signed the papers. Sarah did too. "Dad, why are you doing this? You don't have to go." "Son." Samuel placed his hand on Lucas's shoulder, his eyes filled with tears. "Your brothers think it's for the best, and I don't want you to carry that burden. You have your life, your wife, your plans. My plan is to take care of you. It always has been." But Samuel had already made up his mind. Deep down, He was too exhausted to fight. Golden Years was a 40-minute drive from Greenfield. It was a large, modern building with well-kept gardens and a facade that tried to appear welcoming. Inside, it smelled of disinfectant and loneliness. The corridors were long and white. The rooms were small and impersonal. Samuel was placed in a room on the second floor, overlooking a parking lot. The first few days were awful. He could barely sleep. The bed was hard. The air conditioning was constantly making noise. And he missed everything. His home, the memories with Martha, Lucas's presence. The nurses were polite but rushed. The other residents were kind but distant. Samuel felt like an old piece of furniture that someone had put in storage. David called once in the first week, asking if everything was all right. Samuel said yes, because he didn't want to worry him. Jennifer texted occasionally. The others simply disappeared. It seemed that now that Samuel was sorted out, they could go back to their lives without guilt. But Lucas showed up every week, sometimes twice a week. He brought homemade food that Sarah prepared, spent hours chatting, told silly stories about work just to make Samuel laugh, and every time he left, he promised to come back soon. "Dad, I'm saving money. We're going to get you out of here. You can trust me." Samuel looked at his son and felt a mixture of gratitude and sadness. Gratitude for having someone who still cared. Sadness for knowing that this someone was precisely the only one that the others never considered true family. Months passed. Samuel was wasting away. Not physically, but inside. Loneliness and abandonment corroded his soul. He spent his days sitting in his bedroom chair, looking out the window, waiting. Waiting for what? He didn't even know anymore. Maybe waiting for one of his other children to show up, for David to come visit, for Jennifer to call and see how he was, for Michael, Rebecca, Thomas, or Emily to remember that he existed. But nobody came. Nobody cared. It was as if he had died along with Martha. Except for Lucas. Lucas always came. On a spring afternoon, almost 2 years after Samuel entered Golden Years, Lucas appeared different. He had a sparkle in his eyes, an energy that Samuel hadn't seen in a long time. He entered the room with a wide smile, held by Sarah, who was also smiling. "Dad, I have some news." Samuel was sitting in his usual chair, looking out the window. He turned slowly. "What is it, son?" Lucas knelt in front of his father and held his hands. "I came to get you." Samuel blinked, confused. "Like this?" "I came to get you, Dad. To take you home. To our home. Sarah and I bought a bigger house. There's a perfect room on the ground floor for you with an adapted bathroom, everything. We saved money, we planned, and now it's time. You won't stay here another day." Samuel felt his eyes fill with tears. He couldn't speak. He just looked at his son, that boy he had found under an awning 25 years ago, now a man with a huge heart, willing to do for him what no one else was willing to do. "Lucas, I don't want to be a burden to you. Dad, you were never a burden. You were my salvation. And now it's my turn to take care of you. I won't take no for an answer." Sarah approached and took Samuel's hand as well. "We love you, Dad. And everything is ready. All that's missing is your say yes." Samuel cried. He cried like he hadn't cried since the day of Martha's funeral. He cried with relief, with gratitude, with love. And he said yes. That same day, Lucas gathered all the paperwork, spoke with the nursing home administration, collected the few things Samuel had there, and took his father home. The new house was in a quiet neighborhood in Greenfield, a 2-story building painted light blue with a front garden full of flowers. Samuel's room was on the ground floor, as Lucas had said, spacious, with a comfortable bed, curtains that let in the sunlight, and a window overlooking the garden. On the wall, Sarah had hung framed photos of Martha, of young Samuel, of the whole family. Samuel entered that room and felt something he hadn't felt in years. He felt at home. The days that followed were a time of adjustment, but also of healing. Samuel woke up at his own pace, had breakfast with Lucas and Sarah, spent his days reading, tending the garden and chatting. Lucas worked hard, but always made time to be with his father. Sarah cooked the recipes that Martha used to make, and for the first time in a long time, Samuel smiled for real again. But the story doesn't end there, because God has a funny way of showing who people really are when life turns upside down. 6 months after Samuel left the nursing home, David called, not to ask how his father was doing, not to apologize for disappearing, but because he needed money. The company where he worked had gone bankrupt. He had lost his job, and he was desperate. He asked Samuel to lend him a large sum, promising to pay it back in a few months. Samuel, who had almost nothing, felt his heart tighten. But Lucas, who was in the room when the call happened, understood the conversation from his father's tone of voice. When Samuel hung up, Lucas asked what had happened. Samuel told him, and Lucas, calmly but firmly, said, "Dad, you're not going to give him any money, but he needs it." Lucas. He disappeared for 2 years. He didn't call, didn't visit, didn't ask if you were alive or dead, and now he shows up asking for money. No, Dad, that's not family. That's opportunism. Samuel remained silent. Deep down, he knew Lucas was right. One by one, the others began to appear. Not in person, but by phone. By message, Jennifer needed help paying her rent after losing a lawsuit at work. Michael had injured himself playing soccer and needed money for surgery. Rebecca was trying to start her own business and was asking for an investment. Thomas had credit card debt. Emily wanted to renovate her house and thought Samuel could help. They all showed up. Not to see how Samuel was doing, but because they needed something. And they were all shocked when Lucas, politely but firmly, said no. That Samuel didn't have any money to give. That he was living with Lucas now, and that if they really cared, they would have shown up sooner. David was outraged. "Who are you to decide what our father does with his money?" "I'm the son who stayed," Lucas replied, without changing his tone. "The son who took care of him when you disappeared. The son who took him out of a nursing home while you pretended he didn't exist. So yes, I have the right to speak. And no, he's not going to support anyone here." The call ended with David swearing and hanging up on me. The others reacted in similar ways. Some tried to appeal emotionally, saying that Samuel was being manipulated by Lucas. Others simply stopped talking altogether. But none of them, not a single one, showed up to see their father. Samuel was devastated at first. He cried a lot. He questioned whether he had failed as a father, whether he had done something wrong. But Lucas was there, holding his hand, reminding him of a simple but powerful truth. "Dad, you didn't fail. You gave it your all. But we can't control other people's hearts. You planted love, you planted kindness, you planted generosity. And I'm here as proof that it was worth it. You saved my life. You gave me a family when I had nothing. And now it's my turn to give back. The others, they'll have to live with their choices. But you don't have to carry that guilt." Samuel looked at his son and understood. He understood that true love doesn't come from blood. It comes from the heart. It comes from the daily choice to be present, to care, to love without expecting anything in return. In the following months, Samuel's life blossomed in a way he never imagined. Lucas and Sarah had a baby, a beautiful girl named Martha, in honor of her grandmother. Samuel became a grandfather for the first time for real, not officially, but in practice. He would wake up in the middle of the night to help with the baby, tell stories, and sing the same songs he used to sing to his own children. And for the first time in years, he felt he had a purpose again. The house became a place of joy. Sarah cooked on Sundays and invited friends from church. Lucas worked hard, but always came home with a smile. And Samuel, sitting on the porch with his granddaughter in his lap, looked up at the sky and gave thanks, because he had learned the most important lesson in life, that the greatest treasure is not what you accumulate, but what you plant, and that God never forgets those who plant good, because sooner or later the harvest comes. Samuel lived for another 10 years after that. 10 happy years, full of love, surrounded by a family that chose to truly love him. He watched his granddaughter grow up, saw Lucas prosper, saw Sarah become an incredible mother. And when the time came to leave, he did so peacefully, in his own bed, with Lucas holding his hand, just as he had held Martha's hand years before. At the funeral, only Lucas and Sarah and a few friends from church were present. Of the 6 biological children, none showed up. David sent a message saying he was busy. The others didn't even do that. But Lucas was unfazed. He delivered a simple yet profound speech. "My father taught me that family isn't about blood. It's about love. It's about being there in good times and bad. It's about gratitude. He saved me when I had nothing, and I had the honor of repaying him. He was the greatest man I've ever known. Not because he had money or fame, but because he had a huge heart, and I'm going to pass that on to my daughter, to my future children, to anyone who crosses my path, because that's what he taught me. True love isn't measured, it's lived." And as Samuel's coffin was buried next to Martha's, the sun shone brightly in the greenfield sky, as if God were saying, "Welcome back, my son. You did well." Samuel spent his life planting love without asking for anything in return, and when all seemed lost, when loneliness almost won, it was the son he chose to love, without obligation, without blood ties, only with his heart, who returned everything multiplied. Because true love doesn't depend on biological ties. It depends on gratitude, presence, and care. And in the end, Samuel understood that God never abandons those who sow kindness. The harvest may take time, but it always comes. And when it comes, it's sweeter than anything money can buy. If this story touched you, leave a like, comment what you thought, and subscribe to keep hearing stories like this. Because sometimes, we need to be reminded of what really matters in this life.